Division series time, baby. One of the best times of the year is October for betting sports. And there's four teams left in the AL, four teams left in the NL. And if you're wondering how to bet those teams and those matchups, well, you know you're in the right place. It's first pitch here on WagerTalk TV, and we will be breaking down all four of the series kicking off tomorrow. No pitcher matchups, no problem. We'll be breaking down the series for you right here on Dan Alexander. And joining me, a great crew for a Friday, talking some playoff baseball. Adam Trigger, Brian Leonard, and Steve Merrill. So as I said, we'll be talking Astros, Twins, Phillies, Bravos, Rangers, Orioles, and of course the D-backs and Dodgers last but not least, at least on our rundown here. Trig, I'm going to start with you, man. You wanted to talk this Astros and Twins series. I know you have a kind of lean in game one, but as far as the series go, as far as the series goes, how are you looking to bet this one?
So, from a series perspective, there's probably ins for both of these teams in terms of like where I would want to bet on one. But the Astros is the team that I'm more like looking toward having the better sort of chance in this series and the better spots to maybe back them. So, first, it doesn't really matter in game one who it is. If it's Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, I know it's going to be Verlander for the Astros, and Verlander's got some great numbers against the Twins. If you look at, if you look at, I'll get to Verlander in a second, though. Let's talk about first who might be the starter for the Twins. So if it's Joe Ryan, like we did first pitch a couple weeks ago, I made a bet against him when they were playing the Reds. I talked about him and his struggles since coming off the IL. And in 7 starts since coming off the IL, 4.79 ERA, velocity is down, and he just hasn't really looked like the guy from earlier this season. You know, he's got a career high in innings pitched so far this year. And he just, I made the point on that first pitch before his start against the Reds that it just looked like he'd really been laboring through starts. And that was kind of the case. I believe we talked about him again before he pitched against the Rays, and it was kind of similar. 4 or 5 innings and really kind of, nibbling against batters, struggling to get deep into games. So the guy I would more want to fade here would be Ryan. Now, I'm kind of okay with playing on Verlander either way, because Verlander, since 2018 and 6 starts against the Twins, a 0.64 ERA. He's owned this lineup. And, he's someone, I kind of talked about him during the regular season in September a couple times as someone I wanted to play against because he's getting up there in age. I didn't think he could kind of replicate what he did a couple years ago when he just had this like sort of resurgence. But it's the playoffs now. And he's the type of guy that I think I'd be more inclined to back in a big game than maybe in a game in September. So if you look at those numbers and the fact that his numbers are so good against the Twins, the fact that he's been in this spot, his more experience, postseason experience than just about anyone at this point, I'd be willing to back Verlander there. Another way I'm willing to play against the Twins is if their bullpen doesn't look like it's going to stack up perfectly for them. A couple times, throughout this year, I've talked about their bullpen being top heavy. They've got really good high leverage relief arms. After you get past the high leverage guys, it starts to fall off a little bit. Johan Duran had I don't know if this is an injury per se, but he has a cut on his finger, suffered in, I believe, game 2 against the Blue Jays. I mean, if he couldn't go or if he wasn't like 110%, that would be a real concern for me because he's huge for them at the back end of games. So, I think the Astros probably have a late game advantage anyway, and it could be, sort of magnified if the Twins just don't have everything stack up in their favor at the end of games. I thought the Blue Jays were going to get them at some point. They didn't. The Jays were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position in that game. And man, that managerial decision by the Blue Jays, I really feel like was a gut punch to the team. The whole sort of, tone of the team changed when they took Barrios out. And of course, the at-bat with Chapman, he misses a double by a couple feet that would have cleared the bases. Next at-bat grounds into a double play. And the Blue Jays really never sort of mounted a threat after that. So I feel like the Jays let the Twins off the hook a couple times. The Astros, probably won't do that. This team, Dan, they just seem like they get the timely hit when they need it. There's clutch dudes up and down that roster. And so for that reason, I just think the Astros figure out ways to win these big games. We saw it in the last week of the season to kind of come up and steal that AL West. We've seen it in the playoffs for years. The Twins finally won their first playoff series since 2002, over 2 decades. I don't think they win another one. So I could see the Twins having a good spot or two to get a game in this series, but I do think the series ends up going to the Astros, and I wouldn't mind backing Verlander or playing against Joe Ryan in that first weekend.
All right, so looking towards Astros game one and also the look towards the Astros in the series. Looks like in the chat we're already getting some love for the Twins. So, a little bit of dissension in the ranks as far as the comments are concerned with our live listeners. But hop below in the comments. That's what it's all about, folks. We want to know how you're breaking down these series as well. So, Astros Twins. What's the play for you? Game one, and of course, moving forward in the series as well. We want to know. Hop below in the comments while you're down there. Hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed because we're getting you some great baseball content here. But we got college football previews, NFL previews, NHL right around the corner as well. So more reason than ever to subscribe. And I know the man that's breaking down the Phillies and the Bravos series is excited about NHL rolling around. That's a sport that's been very kind to Brian Leonard and his clients. But let's talk a little Phillies and Braves here. I like the look that you have here in this series, Brian. So how are you looking to attack this one?
Yeah, you've got two really good hitting teams, great hitting team when it comes to Atlanta. But I'm a little bit concerned here with this Atlanta pitching rotation. All season long, the Braves have been the best team in baseball. If you were to ask me right now, even money, I could take any team to win it, it would be the Braves. But the line here comes out Braves in the series at -180, and Philadelphia's catching 155 as an underdog. And keep in mind, this is a revenge matchup for the Braves, who were knocked out of the playoffs last year by these Phillies. I usually like to come back and play on teams that were knocked out, especially if they're the better team, which I believe Atlanta is. But, keep in mind, Atlanta had a much better seasonal record last year than the Phillies did. I believe it was in the same general area as they are now, where they won that division by about the same amount. And the Phillies came out and beat them last year. And I think we may see something similar to that here. My concern for the Braves is their starting rotation. Max Fried's great when he's healthy, but he's been hurt a majority of this season. And in fact, as of right now, we don't know if he's going to go in game one, game two. It hasn't been decided in that regard. So with Fried not possibly getting 2 starts, that is a concern here. So we don't even know if he's going to be pitching. And if he is, will he be fully healthy? Charlie Morton's the other veteran starter on this team. And I had Charlie in my fantasy league this year. So I pay very much attention to those guys. And he just didn't have it this year. He's had a great career, but I think it may be coming to an end. He struggled down the stretch. There's rumors that he's going to retire at the end of the season. So if that happens and he's not 100% here, the Braves are going to have to rely on a lot of inexperienced youngsters. They're talented, no doubt about it, but they're pitching highly motivated innings and highly meaningful innings here. And keep in mind, the Braves haven't played many meaningful games in a long time. I know they played Philadelphia and they played the Dodgers, but still, it's not playoff type baseball. So it's hard to turn it on and turn it off. And the Braves have had this extra time off, a lot of these teams, because of the sweeps. So we will find a lot of these favorites coming into this that haven't played in like 5-6 days. So that is always a concern as well. The Phillies start the likes of Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and likely Ranger Suarez. Zach Wheeler is one of these guys. If you follow advanced stats, which I do, the XFIP and Sierra and those kind of numbers, Zach Wheeler could come off as the best pitcher in baseball this year. He hasn't had the same luck as some of the other guys have. So he's a guy that, in a normal year, he'd be up for the Cy Young here, but he won't be because of some of his poor situations where he just didn't get the luck factor the other guys did. So I really like Zach Wheeler. Aaron Nola has not had the greatest season, but the guy's been there before. He's done that. I like that out of him. And Ranger Suarez has really put it together, but Unfortunately, Atlanta really rakes against lefties. They rank against righties too. So we'll see how that goes when Suarez gets on the mound. But that said, I really trust this Philadelphia pitching staff more right now than the Braves. We all know about the Braves offense. They scored 3 or less runs only 37 times this year. That was one off from an all-time record. We already know how well they've hit home runs this year, setting all-time records. This is a team in Atlanta that can really hit, and they're great. No doubt about it. Can't find any fault there. But when you take a look at this Philadelphia Phillies offense, they've been very good too. And they played half the year without their best player. So I really like this Philly offense. It's not to the Atlanta level, but I think the pitching staff here really gives the Philadelphia Phillies an edge here. They're undervalued in the series price. I'm going to take a look at this to go the full 5. If it goes to full 5 and the Phillies win that, we're getting a plus 450. I like that better than the 155 we get for the entire series because, in all honesty, I don't see the Phillies sweeping 3-0, which leaves us at 3-1 and 3-2, and we're able to get that 450. So I'll take that. I think that's a good bet.
I mean, Phillies in 5 works for me, baby. And especially at a 4.5 to 1 price that we're getting there, plus 450. Of course, I'm a little biased, so I love the breakdown there, but it makes a lot of sense too. And if the Phils do end up stealing one of these games in Atlanta, I think you guys saw that absolute zoo that is Citizens Bank Park. It's not an easy place to go to if you're trying to close out a playoff series. That is for sure. It seems like hard place to go to, even if you're trying to put some runs up on the board this year. So Phillies in 5 to look for Brian Leonard. You'll get no dissension from me. What do the comments think? Hop below and let us know how you're going to be betting the Phillies and the Bravos. All right, Steve, final preview for us before we open up a little roundtable on the D-backs and Dodgers. Steve Merrill, if he's talking baseball, you better be listening. Number 1 over the last month here at WagerTalk, and in the playoffs, been selective, but been perfect as well. 2-0 to start off the MLB playoffs. So Rangers and Orioles, how are you breaking this one down? I think this is a fascinating series.
Yeah, let's go back 40 years. Young Steve Merrill, not yet a sports betting analyst, but I was a sports analyst even in my youth. A big baseball fan in the Northern Virginia area. And of course, we did not have the Washington Nationals, and I wasn't rooting for the Expos at the time, but we did have the Baltimore Orioles. And I can say they're my Baltimore Orioles. I haven't really followed them for 20 some years because they've had some rough years. I had to borrow a hat. I've got about half the hats behind me from coaching, but I haven't coached the Orioles yet. In fact, I've got all 4 remaining National League teams, so I'm covered there. But the only American League team I've got is the Orioles, and this is actually my 7-year-old nephew, Mick Merrill Clausen. And yes, he is named after Mickey Mantle. That's a true story. So we got to go with the Orioles, right? Hat doesn't fit, by the way. It's youth size. But I think there's some reasons other than my childhood heroes, Eddie Murphy and Cal Ripken, to go with the Orioles in this series. And that's because they are a vastly underrated team. Now, look, I like the Texas Rangers. In fact, if you followed the preseason shows here on Wager Talk TV, you recall that Texas and Florida, the Miami Marlins, were my 2 play-on teams for season win overs. Both made the playoffs. I thought they were much better than last year's results. I thought the new rules would benefit the left-handed heavy lineups, especially for Texas. And the Rangers had a nice season. If you had told me DeGrom would miss the entire year and then they would get another guy, Scherzer, and he'd be out, you wouldn't have thought they'd be in this situation, but they are. But the fact remains the Orioles have the better pitching. They have the better bullpen. And you might think Texas is the better offensive team, but I've got some numbers that say otherwise. First of all, let's look at road games only this season. That takes out the home field. Some teams have better home fields than other road games. I'd love to look at it because everyone plays everyone now, NL and AL. If you look at road games only, Orioles had the 6th best batting average in baseball this year. The Texas Rangers, 9th. If you look at, I think, the best overall statistic for offense, on base plus slugging, Baltimore Orioles 7th, Texas Rangers 11th. These are road games only. So I make an argument the Orioles are actually the better offensive team. They've got the better starting pitcher, in my opinion. And most importantly, let's get back to that bullpen factor. Dave Sharapan and I talked about this on Wager Talk today earlier this week on Tuesday. I invite everybody to go back, watch the replay here. Excellent episode. Teddy Covers was in on that conversation as well. And Dave pointed out a stat that got me doing more research. He talked about something MLB Network had told him about how the innings have really gone up in recent years of relief pitchers in the postseason. And everyone thinks about starting pitchers come playoff time, but the last several years, almost half the innings have been relief pitchers. In fact, last year, the Astros, 0.8 ERA, they won the World Series, 43% of the innings pitched. But the 2 years before that, the Braves in 21 and the Dodgers in 20, 54 and 52% of the innings pitched were relief pitchers. Now, the Nationals, my Washington Nationals in 19 broke that trend with only 33%, but the Astros almost won that World Series and they had a high percentage. And even back in 2018, the Boston Red Sox, 47% relievers. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the Baltimore Orioles have the edge in the bullpen statistics as well. In fact, I think ERA is probably the best number to look at because that's runs allowed, and that's what really matters when it comes to winning games. Orioles had the 5th best ERA this year with the bullpen. Texas was not even the top half. You look there in the bottom quarter, actually. Even if you look at WHIP, Baltimore ranks higher than Texas. Baltimore had overall, I believe, like the 8th or 9th best WHIP. Texas about 12th or 13th, depending on which numbers, road, home you're looking at. So we're getting the better bullpen. I think the better starters, to be honest, and also the better offense and just the better team overall. And one other final stat I'll point out. Let's look at record against winning teams this year. Baltimore Orioles, excellent against winning teams this year. I mean, look, first of all, they had the best record in the American League. They won 101 games in the toughest division in baseball, but they also went 51-39 against winning teams. The Rangers, 42-45, 3 games below 500 against winning opponents. I like the Orioles here. We get a great short price, minus $1.25 to win this series. Baltimore Orioles, let's get it done with my Baltimore Orioles once again.
With the lid as well. The series winner, the O's, and a great breakdown to boot there. You agree or disagree? We want to know in the comments below because there's plenty of ways to be looking at these series. So we'd love to hear your thoughts in addition to the experts as well. Guys, D-backs and Dodgers, before we do a little recap and get the folks out of here. Selfishly, I want the Phillies to win their series, and I want the Dodgers to win their series so I can catch some championship series games in LA. I think that would be pretty cool to see. But as much as a handicap and a breakdown, that is not. That's just me being a homer here, guys. So, Trig, I'm going to throw it your way and get your thoughts here on this D-backs and Dodgers series, and we'll see if the guys have anything else to add. But I guess just some surface thoughts as this one kind of missed the card for all of us.
Yeah, so surface thoughts. I don't know who the D-backs are going to go with in game one, but if it's Merrill Kelly, you would potentially have Clayton Kershaw, who is 14-1 with a 1.80 ERA and 22 career starts against the Diamondbacks at Dodger Stadium, against Merrill Kelly, who is 0-11 with a 5.49 ERA and 16 career starts against the Dodgers, and has a 7.03 ERA and 8 career starts at Dodger Stadium. Not sure I would want to go against those splits. Not really sure I want to go against the Dodgers, admittedly. I was a little surprised the D-backs made it through Milwaukee. They were a team I was really high on in terms of them overachieving during the regular season, which they did. I didn't think they would win a playoff series, but, tip the cap there. They did. They got me in game 2, came from behind and won that game. I'm not sure that the bullpen, which was excellent against the Brewers, is going to be able to replicate that against the Dodgers, a team that knows them well, that's seen them a ton. So I've got to give the Dodgers a pretty big edge here. How I would bet that, I'm not entirely sure, but again, I feel like the Dodgers have a nice advantage, especially at home, especially with Kershaw on the mound, who's really has been great since coming off the IL. So yeah, not really a bet in there for me, but just some thoughts about those the first couple games in this series.
Yeah, and it looks like, since this is the one matchup that we have the probable player matchup or probable pitcher matchup, actually listed on the WagerTalk live odds screen, you already see the Dodgers is over 2 bill favorites. So,
Sure.
So the market kind of agreeing there as far as the game one thoughts go. Steve, a decent look there by Adam. You have anything else just to add as far as the series goes, or even maybe how you're looking to bet game one?
Well, I'll just go back to the metrics I used for my Baltimore breakdown. I mean, first, let's look at offense. You've got the Dodgers overall this year, road games only, again, 5th best batting average. Arizona 17th. And then if you look at OPS, Dodgers even better, the 3rd best OPS team on base plus slugging. Arizona was 18th. So obviously the much better offense. And then let's look at those bullpen numbers again. Do you know who had the best bullpen ERA this year in baseball coming into the playoffs? The New York Yankees. How funny is that? They obviously will not win it. Milwaukee had the 2nd best ERA, and Milwaukee has the 3rd best WHIP. So obviously the D-backs beat a good bullpen, but that was a 2-game series. Now, this is only a best of 5. If it was a best of 7, I think it'd be a slam dunk for the Dodgers. But I bring this up because the Dodgers' 3rd best ERA and #1 WHIP. Overall, the Dodgers have the best bullpen this season of all the playoff teams remaining, and that's usually what gets it done. So better offense, better bullpen. Arizona can play money ball. They can run. They have a couple decent starters. So in a 5-game series, they have a chance. But this is the Dodgers to win. Not sure there's much value at -240, but it's Dodgers or pass for me.
Yeah, so there you go. Best of 5 series, all 4 of them. Just some thoughts there and some plays as well. You got the best of 3 from some of the 3 best alongside me, Adam Trigger, Bryan Leonard, and Steve Merrill. Steve looking towards the O's for the series. Bryan on the Phillies in 5, music to my ears. And in game 1, Trig looking towards the Astros. Think they also have the edge for the series. Hop below in the comments and let us know what you're thinking and how you're going to be betting, whether it's game 1 or the entire series. You have any parlays you're going to be throwing in? That's what I'm seeing in this chat here. It's not for my money, but hey, you know, the folks love throwing in that plus money. So let us know in the comments below. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, folks. I mean, we're going to be continuing with First Pitch throughout the playoffs, and we'll be here as the games dictate. You know, Wild Card made it nice and easy to give us a day off. We'll see if the division series does the same. But big thanks to Robert doing a terrific job behind the scenes. Big thanks to Trig, Bryan Leonard, and Steve Merrill getting you ready to bet the MLB playoffs. We'll be seeing you on Monday, hopefully talking about some maybe closeout potential. So make sure you tune in then. Make sure you stay right here on WagerTalk TV because we got all the tools you need to bet all the sports you love. It's just a click away here on WagerTalk TV. Best of luck this weekend.